Dearly beloved, we have gathered here today to get through this thing called Mix CD. My name is Mike, part of the SPDM crew, and I love making Mix CDs. Each week, we give our guests a theme and an 80-minute time limit for which songs they're going to pick for their Mix CD. This week, we are talking about theme songs or, songs of significance in our lives. We're doing another volume of this. This is a popular topic because it's always good to get a sense of what someone's like, and what a great way to get to know somebody by talking about the songs that are most important to them as opposed to favorite songs. So I have here somebody I met on Facebook, and we're recording and we're talking about this. So I have CJ here. So CJ, what's your last name? CJ Plain or CJ?
Plain,
Got,
P-L-A-I-N, like
got it. Okay. So
all the
CJ,
jokes that were growing up about it, the plane, and plain
oh,
M&Ms and plain bagels, and I've made jokes for years. I wish I could copyright my last name because I'd be a trillionaire if everybody
right.
would have to pay me for plain bagels, plain M&Ms, plain, you know, this and that. So
That's that's fantastic. So welcome to the show. Appreciate you reaching out
absolutely,
and
man.
looking forward to talking about this. So TJ, why don't you tell me a little, or CJ, I'm sorry, tell me a little bit more about yourself. Tell me a little bit more about your podcast as well.
I am a music fanatic. I book fanatic. I'm in the process of finishing my first book.
Oh, fantastic.
I grew up in the front seat of a Peterbilt,
Mhm.
essentially. My dad's in his 53rd year as a truck driver. Mom and dad divorced when I was two. Dad got custody. So we didn't have a house. We lived in the truck and we traveled all over the country. And this was the early 1970s. There were no laptops, computers, cell phones, anything like that. So all I had was books and music. And from a very early age, I just sort of immersed myself in it. And now I'm sort of a walking encyclopedia set, on both things. And I got the nickname the Music God in seventh grade from a teacher, and
Nice.
she said something about Bob Seger. Yeah, I said, no, you're wrong. And she goes,
Mhm.
well, I'm the teacher. I know more about music than you do. And I'm like, look, my dad's favorite artist is Bob Seger. He will physically fight you over Bob Seger. Okay.
Mm.
Like, I know Bob Seger more than I know any other artist. And I went home, got the record, come back to the school, and I showed her she was wrong. And aren't you just a little music god? And of course, all my friends heard it. And after that, that's who I was. And it just, I've sort of turned it into a brand, sort of that's my logo and who I am. And that's what everybody kind of knows me as, is the music god, because my
Mhm.
knowledge of music is completely insane.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I'm so happy to finally be able to get a chance to talk to you, because you and I have been corresponding for maybe it's almost been a month now, just trying to figure
Yeah.
out a time to figure this out. And I'm glad that we finally did this, because I don't know about you, like when like looking for guests, there it's kind of grouped into like three different types of people. You've got the people who you actually finally get to connect with. There's the people who are trying to sell you something, and then there's the
Yeah.
flakes. And it's like it's tricky, but I'm just really glad that got a chance to finally talk. So let's start with this. So first question right off the bat, why'd you pick this topic? Because there I sent you a bunch of different topics, and
It
I'm
was
kind of wondering what was it about this one that kind of stood out to you?
it was hard, man, because every single thing you sent, I was like, my brain was immediately like, yeah, I could make that list. I could like every single one you sent me, I could have easily made a list and gone with that topic. But music is what I love. And this one, it was just sort of like, everybody kind of has those songs that when you hear that song, it instantly takes you back to where you were at any particular moment. And you can remember the first time you heard that song, or
Mhm.
what you were doing the first time you played that song, or and that's what this list is sort of songs that represent me as a person. They
Mhm.
represent moments in time for me. They represent personality, like who I am personality wise. So it's sort of a mismatch of those two things. But
Mm,
there's a number of ones on that list that I definitely want to come back and do more because
yeah,
it was hard to choose. It really was. Like this one seemed like the most logical to
to
me, I
start
guess.
to start
Um,
off with, as
but
an introductory one. So yeah,
yeah,
that's understandable. And yeah, for sure. We could do as many of these lists as you want. And then more importantly, also, if there's ever a list that you want to pitch me, I'm always looking for new themes because, after
yeah.
after a while, it's like, why don't we, just try something new here? So you mentioned that you've got thousands of, if not millions of songs kind of just going through your head. So
I got my music collection is about 3 million songs across 100 genres.
yeah, so
So,
whittling this down
so
to 80 minutes. I'm
yeah,
sure I'm sure there were some hard cuts and there were some things that you had to do in order to get it within the 80-minute time frame. So did you have any like rules or anything that you established right off the bat that you were like, yeah, I got to set some parameters and rules up in order for me to get to my
it
80
just
minute time limit?
I sort of just made a big old list and then I just
Hmm.
started whittling away of, like I don't have any Bob Seger on the list, even though Bob Seger is the artist I know the most because that's Dad's favorite and we listen to it more than anything else. But, there's a lot of artists on this list that people are going to immediately know. And then there's a few that people are going to be like, okay, I don't know that artist. And I hope they're introduced to them and like them. But every one of these songs has a meaning to me. Like it's sort of like my tattoos. Like every tattoo I have has a story. Every tattoo has a meaning and a definition as a sort of a part of my life. So that's what these songs are essentially. Is
Nice.
there's a story for each one of them.
Awesome. Well, awesome. So you know what? Let's just dive right into it then. So we'll group these into about let's see, how many songs do you have on your list? One, two, three. You have about 18 songs on your list. So why don't we group this into groups of three? And why don't we start with your first three songs? So just go song by song. So let's go with the first one. Let's just kind of talk about it and let's see, just whatever stories you got and whatever, why'd you pick it? And did the order of the songs matter to you, or was it really just something that, you just kind of pick
I,
songs and then,
I
it
didn't
just
have them in
felt.
order at first,
Mhm.
but I earlier today I kind of went through and put them in an order of kind of from earliest to the newest. So, we're gonna sort of start with childhood and I'm gonna sort of take you through my life
All
of
right. All right. Let's do it. So let's go with your first three. I've got your list here. So your first song on this list is Blackfoot Highway Song.
Yep.
So tell me about it.
It's it's Southern rock classic, but it's a truck driving song. It's Ricky Medlock wrote it about being on tour buses and just having endless miles of highway. And that's again growing up in the front seat of a Peterbilt. That's really what I had is I
Mhm.
had the passenger seat, books, and a lot of music, and just endless miles of highway from Michigan to Alabama, from Alabama to New Jersey, New Jersey to Wyoming, Wyoming to Arizona, Arizona to, I mean, we crisscrossed the country more times than I can count. And
Yeah.
that was really sort of a kind of a running theme of just highway of, everywhere we went. And this was the early days. I mean, this was before all the modern stuff you see now. You didn't have as many highways as you have now. You didn't have as many clear-cut paths. So sometimes you took a lot of dirt roads, a lot of,
Hmm.
country roads, a lot of back roads to get where you had to go. So that's what that is. Jerry Reed, sort of the same thing, Eastbound and Down, everybody knows that song. It's Smokey and the Bandit. It's important to me. I actually got to meet Jerry when I was 7. We stopped for dinner one night at a truck stop, and as we pulled in, we seen the truck, and I was immediately like, that's the snowman's truck. That's the snowman's truck. And Dad's like, no, it ain't the snowman's truck. It's just some old trucker who's, got a copy of it. We went in and we sat down and we ordered and I had to go to the bathroom. So I went around and I went back towards the bathroom at the back of the truck stop and as I passed the last table, it was a booth in the corner. I saw Jerry sitting there with a bunch of other guys. And
Nice.
I immediately stopped and I ran back to the table and I was like, Dad, Jerry, that's Jerry Reed. He's in the back. Dad's like, no, it's just some old boy that looks like Jerry. And I'm like, look, I've watched Smokey and the Bandit 314,000 times. It's hard to mistake Jerry for anybody, okay? And Dad's like, it ain't Jerry. So I, being 7 and tenacious, I marched my ass right back to the table and I posted up at the edge of the table. He smiled and he's like, can I help you, son? I said, you Jerry Reed? He said, yes, I am. I said, my dad said it ain't you. He goes, where's your daddy at? I said, he's over there. Jerry stood up, set his head on the table, and he's like, son, come on over here and have dinner with us. And my dad stood up and he was just like, holy shit, it's Jerry Reed. What it was is they were filming Smokey and the Bandit too. And they were
Okay.
filming the driving scenes and they got hungry. They were away from catering. So
Mm.
they stopped to have dinner. And we just happened to,
Right place, right time.
yeah.
Right.
But one of the nicest guys, just absolutely hilarious guy. And, we had dinner with him. And so I have
Mhm.
a special place in my heart for Jerry.
Yeah.
He's a phenomenal actor, but even an even better guitar player. Like for those that don't know, Jerry was a monster guitar player. So
Uh,
that's
so can I ask you a question?
sure.
So you've been across the US numerous times, like you were saying with your dad. Is there any stretch of highway or kind of areas that bring the fondest memories back to you?
Driving through Kentucky and Tennessee was always the most interesting. The Smoky Mountains present a unique challenge for truck
Hmm.
drivers.
Yeah.
The higher you climb, the icier it will get. And, you have to know exactly what you're doing going through those mountains.
Hmm.
The twists, the turns, you have to know how to, downshift, upshift. A couple times coming down off the mountains, we cooked the brakes and ended up going into one of those highway runoffs. And,
Okay.
not fun.
I can imagine
Oh,
that's not
yeah,
fun.
not fun at all. But it's part of the lifestyle, and but the other cool thing too is, going through the Smoky Mountains back then. This was before Gatlinburg and before Dolly had Dolly World and all of that. There were so many roadside diners, so many roadside little things that we would stop at just to kill the monotony. Roadside putt-putt golf things, roadside that had the big slides. They'd be like little roadside, almost little mini carnivals. And I got a lot of really great memories of just all the things that we did. Cherokee, North Carolina, going through there the first time, and all the great shops and
Mhm.
all of that. They have antique shops, but they also have the casino, the bingo casino there is massive. So there's stuff like that was really cool and stuff that you don't see now. You
No,
know,
you definitely don't anymore because you know
yeah,
it's sad, but you know
yeah,
that's just the evolution of
yeah. Families don't take vacations like you did back in the day, where you put, 6 kids in the car and just
and
drove to
just
wherever
go
you were
and
going.
just go. Yeah.
Um, And I grew up that way. Like both my dad and my grandfather, both. We would come home on Friday and Grandpa'd be like, pack a bag, taking a road trip. Where are we going? Don't know. We'll know when we get there.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah,
Exactly.
we'll know when we get there. And I mean, sometimes we ended up at tractor pulls. Sometimes we ended up in little roadside hotels next to a lake so we could fish. Sometimes we ended up at state parks by the UP in Michigan. One time we went down to Georgia and we went to the Smoky Mountains and then all the switchbacks and all that in Georgia. My Aunt Brenda, I don't know if you know the name, but my Aunt Brenda is the accountant for Xavier Roberts, who is the guy that invented the Cabbage Patch doll.
Oh, I know
And
I know what the Cabbage Patch doll is.
so
I didn't know the name of the person that invented it, so now I know.
when they were invented and they took off, he sold the rights to Coleco to mass produce them.
Hmm.
But it was a two-tier deal. Coleco got to create the Cabbage Patch dolls, the ones with the plastic face. He kept the rights to what's known as Smoky Mountain Collectibles. And what Smoky Mountain Collectibles are the original Cabbage Patch with the cloth face and all of that. These are handmade, hand painted, handcrafted by the same ladies that did it back in the 70s and the 80s. Xavier went from essentially his mom and him and his brother, they lived on welfare, had no money. He wanted to be a fashion designer. He created the Cabbage Patch doll. took off. The initial deal with Clico was $3 billion, $3.3 billion. So he became a billionaire overnight. Built this massive house, and at the end, when you took his driveway, it went down a hill, and at the bottom of the hill, there was this massive pole barn building he built. That's where Smoky Mountain Collectibles are.
Mm.
And the ladies that work for him, they start at one end and they take the head and one puts the hair on it, passes it to the next one. She paints the eyes on it, hands it to the next one. That one paints the mouth, hands it to the next one. So it's an assembly line. But he pays those ladies an astronomical amount of money for those things because they're
Mhm.
expensive. They're $3,000 or $4,000 a piece if you get an original one. So Xavier, my aunt, is his accountant. Super friendly guy. But that was one of the trips we took. We went down to Georgia to see her, and she took us. There's an actual, if you go to Cleveland, Georgia, which is just
Mhm.
north of Gainesville, there is the Cabbage Patch Hospital. And you can
Mhm.
go in there and you can watch them being born. You can buy them, go through the adoption things. They've got a little ambulance that if you own one of these things, they'll send the ambulance out and do the whole thing of putting it in the ambulance and bringing it to the hospital. And, they make a whole show out of it.
Mm.
So it's really just one of them, another memory of the road trips that
Yeah,
took.
that's
So
awesome. All right. Next song, you got Dan Fogelberg, leader of
yeah,
the band, the
yeah.
Washington Post March. Why'd you pick that one for?
That's sort of the song about my relationship with my dad. I don't have the best relationship with my dad now. My dad is kind of, let's just say he has a lot of opinions I don't agree with.
Mm.
So I stay over here and he stays over there, and he's free to have his opinion over there, and I'm free to think he's a racist asshole over here.
Ah,
Uh,
which
I mean,
that's the trend nowadays, isn't it? Just
it is what it is. Like
mhm.
he's 75. I guess it's part of the era he grew up in, but
Yeah.
but I don't I don't look at it that way. Like, look,
You could,
information out there. It's so easy to learn. It's so easy to meet people and see that those opinions are not only outdated, but they're just wrong.
yeah.
So that's sort of the song for my dad. Is it's he tells the story of being on the road and his dad being a failed musician and became a furniture maker, and talking about his brothers. One went to Chicago, the other's in LA, and I'm in some hotel room living out this life I know. Songs I sing so well. So it's just sort of that song of,
Yeah.
even though I don't agree with my father and I don't speak to my father that much, I very much am my father's son. I'm like him in a lot of ways other than that. So it's just sort of that song. It's a song about being like your father, even though you don't intend to be like your father.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what that song is.
I I always thought for me because I didn't have a great relationship with my dad growing up because my parents got divorced when I was 5 as well. And I always thought that my greatest fear is that I'd end up like him. But
Yeah.
I think after a while, it took me a long time to realize that like, hey, I do have some agency over my life and, I don't always agree with him, but and we've got a better relationship now because my now wife, she was the one that pushed me. It's like, hey, that's in the past because I was holding on to that for a
Yeah.
long time. And if I had it my way, I'd probably be like, I'm good. I don't need this anymore because
I mean, I've spoken to my dad twice in 25 years.
yeah. So
It's more his choice than
mhm,
mine, truthfully.
mhm.
But it just is what it is. Like, I don't hold
Yeah.
on to it. I got certain things that I'm still angry about. I got certain things that I still kind of hold a grudge over. But at the same time, I've given him chance after chance to be a part of his grandchildren's life and to
Hmm.
whatnot. And he just chooses not to. He's a truck driver through and through. He loves the solitary lifestyle. He loves being in that truck by himself with his music on, and he doesn't talk a lot.
Hmm.
I've sat at dinner with my dad for 2 hours in a restaurant, and that man has said 3 words in 2 hours. So he's not a verbal person at
Got
all.
it. Mhm.
So it's just I kind of hit a point where like, look, this is just me banging my head against the wall,
Hmm.
and I've already got enough facial scars from it. So
Right.
done.
Yeah. Yeah. And there is something that's kind of cathartic about that sometimes because
Yeah,
I know plenty of people who are just trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. And
yeah,
after a while, it's like, at what point do you just give up and you just realize these
yeah.
two things don't fit? So,
Give up so much just as you realize that you're not gaining any ground. So you
Yeah.
take a different path.
Hmm.
And you just realize that like I'm too old for this. I'm too old for this, and I'm not going to drag my kids to this circus. And I want better,
Yep.
and you do better,
Hmm.
because it's on you. It ain't on them. It ain't on nobody else. At the end of the night, you have your four walls, and that's the only thing you control is what's within those four walls of how your food is made, how your children are raised, how you love your wife if you have one. Those are all things that are within your control when you're at
Hmm.
home.
Yeah.
If you can do that right, then you can do the rest of the stuff right. Um,
Correct.
but it all starts with there. Like if you have a chaotic home life, everything else is going to be chaotic as well. So,
For sure.
uh,
All right. We got your next. So your next grouping of songs. So we've got Boston Hitch a Ride.
yeah, Boston to me is the greatest debut album of all time. So many songs, but Hitch a Ride is a song. Again, sort of goes to the lifestyle of always being on the move, but also it was one of them songs on that record that it just had a vibe to it that
Mhm.
I've always loved. Started with the acoustic guitar and then it sort of kicks off, and it's my favorite song on that record. And yeah, it's
Yeah.
just it's one of those songs I love. I rarely go a week without listening to that song
Hmm.
at least two or three times. So,
No,
um,
that's a good call about Boston. Their debut album is just
yeah,
the stuff of legends
yeah,
because it's that
yeah.
good.
And it holds up. Like here we are 50 years later, and it still sounds as credible as it did from day one. You have Foreplay, you have Long Time, you have Rock and Roll Band, Hitch a Ride. I mean, it's just song after song of just killer
Hmm.
tune off that record. So, and I've worn out more copies of that than any. I've literally had vinyl copies of that record that I played so much that I wore the grooves out of that record and had to replace it. So,
Nice. That's awesome. All right. We got the 38 special. Bring it on.
so very first concert I ever attended. I was 11 years old, May 13th, 1982. My Uncle Marty took me to my first concert, and it was Iron Maiden and 38 Special opening for Rainbow. And it was a mismatch of epic proportions. Like, it was one of them shows where you're like, who the hell put a metal band, a southern rock band, and a progressive rock band? But it was an incredible show. 38 Special, when they opened, that was the first song they played, Bring It On. And it sort of became sort of a theme song for me of whatever life throws at you, bring it on. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to keep fighting, whether it's bad relationships, whether it's bad jobs, whether it's just the chaos of life. Go ahead, bring it.
Hmm.
I'm not going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I've survived some crazy, crazy shit over the years. So
Yeah.
that's sort of what that song is.
Yeah. And it's always, I feel like everybody should have a song like that in their back pocket,
Yeah.
just like, hey, I'm just gonna take everything as they come and we'll just live life and just continue to go from there. And this is one that it's a great song to pick for this, but it's also enhanced by a story because when you said the three bands that you went to your first concert with, that is a very eclectic group
Yeah.
of bands
You know,
put together, which nowadays you get interesting pairings of different people with concerts, but concerts aren't the same as they
no.
were
Oh, no.
before. So
No. Well,
yeah.
every once in a while you'll see a really great package, but I have been lucky to attend some of the greatest concerts of all time. I
Hmm.
saw the American version of Monsters of Rock. I've gone to Donington in England and saw the original Monsters of Rock there. I've been to Wacken. I've been to Rockskilde in Sweden. I saw the original Clash of the Titans, which was Megadeth, Slayer, Testament, and Anthrax, I think it was, and then Suicidal Tendencies was the opening band. So I've seen some really huge, massive
Hmm.
stadium shows. I was at WrestleMania 3 at the Pontiac Silverdome. So, I've been really lucky in the aspect of I've got to experience some incredible sporting events, some incredible
Hmm.
music events that, the original Monsters of Rock one here was Metallica and Van Halen, and then it had Scorpions, Dokken, and Kingdom Come with the five bands. And then, I saw Queensryche on the original Operation Mindcrime tour. I've For the Castle Donington show we saw in England, it was AC/DC, White Snake, Ozzy, Gary Moore. And Gary is the one who, of all of those bands, Gary's the one who stands out because just a badass guitar player, man. That
Hmm.
most people will say, oh, it's Eddie Van Halen or it's this guy. But to me, the greatest guitar player, always going to be Gary Moore because Gary was, he was the total package, man. He could do everything.
That actually be a list that I'd love to,
Yeah.
the greatest guitar players and like just your either your favorite song or like the song that like
Yeah.
best represents what kind of a guitar player that individual is. I think that you'd be uniquely positioned to do something like that. And
Oh, a while back, probably about 2 years ago, one of my very good friends is Pete Evick. He's the guitar player for Bret Michaels' solo band. And him and I did a bracket. And the bracket was 64 people. It was 64 on the bracket. And it was the greatest guitar players that ever lived, not named Eddie Van Halen. Eddie wasn't on the list. So I made this bracket of 64, and I made Pete, who's this massive fanboy of guitar players, and I made him pick bracket style of who. And he was so angry with me by the end. Like, he's like, you're making me choose between Steve Vai and Joe Satriani. You're making me choose between Gary Moore and Yuli John Roth. And it was a brutal
Mhm.
bracket because what I did is I took the 64 names and I didn't make the bracket. I used a generator, like a bracket
Oh, okay.
generator. So it made the bracket just randomly. And some of the brackets were easy choices. And then some of them were,
As it gets later on in the bracket, I'm sure it gets harder and harder.
even some of the early ones, like one of the very first ones was Satriani versus Steve Vai. In as like first round, you got to
Mm,
choose between that.
mm,
The other one I think was Frank Zappa and Gary Moore. And that was the one I was like, oh,
ouch.
that hurts my heart because
Mm,
I love Gary Moore, but I'm also a massive fan of Frank Zappa. So, it was a lot of fun though. But yeah, I'm open to
mm.
everything, man. I go for hours about music and movies.
Nice. Very nice. All right. Next song, we've got Air Supply, Making Love
Making
Out of
love out
Nothing
of
at
nothing
All.
at all. So one of my secret, I won't call it a secret, but most of my friends know, but one of my guilty pleasures is Air Supply. I love Air Supply. I'm a massive fan of Jim Steinman. Jim Steinman wrote Making Love Out of Nothing at All. He wrote Total Eclipse of the Heart. He wrote Bad Out of Hell. 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad. He wrote almost all of Meatloaf stuff, most of Bonnie Tyler stuff. He wrote, dozens and dozens of massive hit songs. And while I love Air Supply, there is something about this song and the power of this song that has always captivated me.
Mhm.
And this is my drunk karaoke song. If you take me to a karaoke bar, that's the song I'm going to get up on stage and just completely ruin because I'm not a great singer, but that's not going to stop me. And I'm going to scream it at the top of my lungs. So it's just one of those songs,
Right.
because it starts out really slow and it just builds up and builds up to that final crescendo of just, the massive drums and the, vocals and, I can make every tackle at the sound of the whistle. I can make all the stadiums rock. And it's just one of those songs I love,
Mhm.
man. It's such a passionate song.
So look, granted, I haven't known you for very long, but Air Supply would not have been the song or would not have been the band that I would have been like, yeah, you look like a fan of Air Supply. And I
And
think
there's a lot of artists that I love that are like that. I love Savage Garden. I love Bonnie Tyler. There's this singer from Kazakhstan. His name is Dimash. And he's this younger kid. He's classically trained, has a 7.5 octave vocal range.
ooh,
He's
nice.
completely alien. Like this kid is you watch his videos, and at the end of the video, you're just kind of like, how did I
Dear,
just watch? Like that
dear
was
Lord.
insane. And when I started my reaction channel, I started doing metal videos and a few others, and somebody said you should check out Dimash. One of the videos I did was "Turn the Lights Off" by Sabotage. I love that big, like Air Supply. I love that big, bombastic, theatrical type of sound. You should check out Dimash. And I was like, who the hell is Dimash? Oh, you. And the first song I did, it was just like,
Ooh,
I mean, it was just the most insane because I've stood in the front of the stage and I've watched Judas Priest. I've met and my band opened for King Diamond. I have watched Celine Dion and Whitney Houston and all of these just killer singers. And this kid, he makes all of them sound like amateurs. It is just the most insane thing you'll ever. I challenge anybody, like anyone that watches this, check out Dimash, Dimash. It'll blow your mind. The kid is just an alien. And
All
he's a
right.
young kid. He's only like 25, 26. So
I don't know whether to be like insanely impressed or insanely jealous or both. Because I remember how I was when I was 25 and be like, no, no.
yeah.
But good for him. And you suggesting that is also part of the reason why I started this in the first place, because I feel like nowadays the way that we consume music is so different than the
Yeah.
way it is now. Because, when you're just listening to the radio and it's just you in the car, or God forbid that you had a radio that you had one of those long ass antennas and you're just struggling to figure out how to get like the right frequency or the right angle so that the station comes in clear. And if you hear a song on the radio, be like, cool, this sounds good. What's this called? Oh, DJ didn't say anything. I just got to sit here and wait until the song comes back on and hope the DJ actually says the name of the band and the name
It
of the
was the
song.
story of my life growing up.
Yeah. Eh,
Of hearing a song on the radio, didn't know what it was, so you'd call the radio station. Hey, you played a song 20 minutes ago. What was that song? What did it sound like? And you try to sing it back. And,
mhm,
first time I heard One Night in Bangkok, it was that. He
mhm.
didn't say the name of it, and I didn't know who it was. Of course, we
Yeah,
didn't have the internet to search back then.
exactly. And
But it was, One Night in Bangkok. Da, da, da,
mhm,
da, 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 da. Immediately, I was like, I gotta have that. I gotta
mhm,
have that record.
yeah,
And of course, I called the station. And he goes, well, "What did it sound like?" And I sing it. And he goes, "Oh yeah, that's Murray Head." And I was like, "Murray Head? Like that's a weird ass name." But
this does not match my original
yeah,
thought of this was
um,
going to be.
Falco was another one. When I heard "Rock Me Amadeus," it was such a crazy mix of styles. It was
Mhm.
one of the earliest ones that mixed pop with rock guitars and in the theatrical sort of Broadway style. So it was another one that immediately sort of struck my fancy. And I've always been more impressed by the people that could be theatrical with their style. Then that's why I love Queen. That's why I love Prince. That's why I
Yeah.
love Pink Floyd,
Mhm.
because it's more than just music. It's an experience.
Yeah, exactly. It's an experience, and also because I haven't gotten a chance to see a whole lot of concerts in my life, but there are the concerts that I remember where I enjoyed it because there was people who or there were people who just performed and the music was great, but then there was someone that knew how to put on a show. And
Yeah.
there's a world of difference there. So like for instance, look, I think Eric Clapton's a great guitar player. He's a shit performer though. Like
So,
all he does is just play music and then is like, "Thank you." And then
yeah.
that's it.
So is Metallica.
Yeah.
Metallica is like watching paint dry.
Mm,
Like James just stands in one spot and just sort of does this. And it's like, dude, move around. You got a whole freaking stage. I'm paying you, stupid amount of money for these damn tickets. And you're just standing there like a damn robot.
Yeah.
And it's like, and then you had other bands that Poison, when I saw Poison, they are all over. I mean, Brett
Mm,
Michaels is just a killer performer because he understands that concept of like what Freddie was about. You watch Queen. That was Freddie's even more than his voice. I mean, Freddie had a massive voice, but he was a showman. He all over the stage, and he had that swagger, man. And I mean, you get into the whole thing of Freddie was gay, this, that, and the other thing, but yes, it didn't matter because I
He,
mean that's who he was. That's who Elton John was. Rob Halford, when Rob Halford come out, one of my friends was so angry. Oh, I can't believe Rob Halford is gay. Really? What Rob Halford were you watching?
yeah.
What do you mean?
Why?
Leather chaps. I mean, he's the metal version of the Village People, bro. Like you're shocked that Rob Halford is gay. Like everything about Rob Halford screamed gay. I
Well,
didn't care. He's a
well,
phenomenal singer. He's a super nice guy.
and that's the key thing that you challenge people with is like, how does knowing this knowledge now, like, why does that
Yeah,
change anything?
yeah.
Hmm.
Like, does that make Rob Halford any less of a monster singer. I mean, those notes that he could hit, I mean, they're almost like a drill, you know. I mean,
Yeah.
a handful of people on earth that can hit those notes. So, like you said, why does it matter?
Yeah. It's just it shouldn't change anything, but for the people out there who it does, seriously, come on. Like
Yeah,
what
exactly.
is happening right now?
Yeah.
But yeah. So next song on your list, you got Grim Reaper, See You in Hell. This is the first song on your list that I don't think I've ever heard of.
So at 13 years old, I did some boneheaded shit and made my dad angry. And he said, "You're going to live with your mother in California. I don't want to see you." This was 1983. Hair metal was just taking off. Sunset Strip. My mom's condo was 2 blocks off of Sunset Strip. So I went from living on a farm in a town of 844 people to Sunset Strip, Los Angeles, girls, rock stars, lights,
Mm.
clubs. It was
That is
it was
as culture
glorious.
shocking. That
It was
is
glorious. But anywho, I got there. I had to stay at home for the first week because mom was waiting for my school records to come because she couldn't get me in school. So she went to Army and she bought me the stereo to occupy me. I'm like you were just talking about earlier, going through the stations, trying to find a station. And I'm going through the stations and I come to 101.7, KLOS, and I hear, "See you in hell." It's just this screaming guitar, and it's the most bombastic song I've ever heard. And I was like, "Oh, what is this?" And it was just one song after another. Quiet Riot, Def Leppard, Hollywood Rose, Keel, Alcatraz. And I was like, oh, I was obsessed from that point on. Like I had heard hard rock and I had heard AC/DC and I had heard Judas Priest and Bad Company and other bands that were similar. But this was just a whole new, I would walk around Sunset Strip. And one of the big things then is there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of bands. So to get signed, bands would walk up and down Sunset Boulevard and they would hand out flyers to the show. They would hand out free demo tapes. So I accumulated hundreds and hundreds of these tapes of bands before they were ever famous. And the girls, hair bigger than life. And,
Mhm.
the way they dressed was, like a MTV video. And then you'd get on a bus and you'd go to Venice Beach. And, Venice Beach back in the day was kind of like I said, they had all the shops. They had the surf shops and the record stores and the sunglasses places and the little restaurants and the taquerias and I mean it was the most glorious thing, man. I was just like, holy shit. Like I never want to go back to Michigan. And that's what this song is it's the very first song that I heard in California that sort of turned me into a metalhead.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
their style is very much like Judas Priest. So, Steve, unfortunately now he lost, but not Steve, Nick, the singer, he lost his leg, part of his leg to diabetes. So he still sings, but he's in a wheelchair now. And but still an incredible performer. Still got a voice like a demon. So yeah.
Nice. I lived in California for a couple of years as well. I'm from the Chicagoland area, and
Okay.
just Chicago, it's the third largest city, but it doesn't feel like a giant city. And then
Right.
you go to LA where it's different out there,
Yeah.
but there's some things I miss about living in LA, and then there's some things that I'm like, I'm not that upset
Yeah, that's
about that.
exactly the way I am. Like, I miss the taquerias. Truthfully, like, there's something about the California ones that are just totally different than anywhere else in the country. Like if you've been to a Mexican restaurant in the Midwest or in the South or anything like that, it is not the same as what they got in Cali.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was one thing. The very first time I ever had a wet burrito was, I went up to one and, he was, "Can I take your order?" And I was like, "Yeah, what do you got?" And I'm looking at it. And he's like, "Wet burrito." And I was like, "What the hell's a wet burrito?" No, it's this. And he's explaining it to me. And I was like, "Oh, damn, that sounds good as hell." So he makes me one. And this damn thing it's like this freaking long and it's like this big around and it's covered in the red sauce, lettuce and cheese. And I was like, hell, like that's for like 17 people, man.
Yeah. What am I supposed to do with this?
Just the greatest thing I had ever tasted. That was Oh my God. And immediately upon getting back to Michigan, that was the first thing I did is tried to deconstruct how to make those damn things. And I still make them now. And most people, oh, that's just an enchilada. No, it's the massive difference between an enchilada and a wet burrito. You just, but I still make them and I love them.
Nice,
And
nice, nice.
Michael Monroe.
Michael Monroe, Dead, Jail, or Rock and Roll?
So this is a song of all the songs on this list. This is my theme song. Like this is the song. When I heard this song, I knew from a very, very early age I wanted to be a rock star. There was never a plan B. There was no, oh, well, if it doesn't work out, I'll do this. Or, what if it doesn't work out? I'll figure it out then. But my plan was always, I'm going to be a rock star. That's it. So when I heard this song after Hanoi Rocks broke up and Michael did his first record, I heard this song and just immediately was like, that's my life.
Mhm.
I knew from the age of 12 that I was either going to be dead, I was going to play rock and roll, or I was going to end up in jail.
Mm.
Those were like the three
Those were the
paths that I had
those
before.
that was it. And yeah,
And it every time I hear this song, it's just that song that and if you had to sum up me, my life, that's the song of, Dead Jail or Rock and Roll. He says, when I was a boy, I always wanted to be the meanest, the meanest dude on the meanest machine, something, something on a highway ride. I can't remember the lyrics. I have a hard time remembering lyrics, but he's basically saying, dead jail or rock and roll. So that's my theme song. Like if you summed up this whole list, that's my song.
that's the one song that you
Yeah.
would, you know,
Yeah.
that's yeah, okay. Gotcha. It's a great pick though. You could do a lot worse than that. And that's
And
just
it's got Axl Rose singing background, so another cool little
another
bit
cool
that.
little thing to add on to that. So good stuff. We got Man of War, The Gods Made Heavy Metal.
Yeah. So Man of War is a band. They're very polarizing to a lot of people. I don't think I've ever heard anyone say, Man of War is okay. Man of War is a band you either are a massive fan of or you just hate. I love Man of War just because again they have the whole image of the sort of D&D warrior type look with the leather chest things across their thing and the swords and the dragons and their lyrics are very sort of Game of Thrones dungeons,
Ah, okay.
but they also have this thing of they're known as the loudest band on earth. They've broken the record various times, multiple times over the years of performing the loudest concert. One of the concerts I attended, Pine Knob, here near Detroit, they went for the record and they forced everybody out of the arena area because they were going to be so loud. So we went out, but we went on the opposite side of the fence because it's like a metal
Mhm.
fence. So you could see through the fence. You just couldn't be on the grass. And when they went for this record, it was 123 decibels.
Oh,
And
oh,
the song that they performed was The Gods Made Heavy Metal. And they're like, the gods made heavy metal, and they saw that it was good. They said to play it louder than us. Notice that we would. So, I mean, it's just this sort of cheesy, bombastic, but their songs they're chants more
uh,
than things, but they're brilliant musicians. Best bass player on earth, I think, is Joey DeMeo. Like, Joey plays in a way that's just ungodly. So it's another one of my picks that most of my friends hate Manowar. I love Manowar. I've got other records. I've seen them live multiple times.
why
And
why do you think people don't like them? Is it just because they're loud, or
because
is there
because
something else with them?
the imagery is very
Not for everybody.
yeah, like the big muscle bound guy with
Uh,
Dungeons and Dragons, like the Conan the Barbarian look.
God.
So I think a lot of guys are just kind of, oh, that's homoerotic or whatever.
Mm,
But I mean, it's like, I don't like them. They're gay looking. Conan the Barbarian? Yeah. You ever watch Crawl the Destroyer? Yeah. You ever watch Game of Thrones? Yeah. It's the exact same freaking thing in musical form. What are you talking? Like, but
that's
whatever.
yeah, that's selective enforcement of things,
They're a
you know?
fun band though, and they're
Mm.
loud. Like they're one of them bands that when you see them live, you're gonna get the massive show with walls of speakers, dragon imagery. They just, and again, they're brilliant musicians. They can play stuff that a lot of musicians wish they could play. So that's sort of Man-O-War.
Next, we've got the Dayton family, Flint Town.
So we're changing up here. Dayton family is hip hop. When I came back from California, I was with dad for about another year. I ended up in foster care. I was put in foster care on the north side of Flint. Now, if you've never been to Flint, the north side of Flint is sort of similar to the south side of Chicago. Not
Not the best area.
Not a fun place. My first day of school, I showed up Flint Northwestern to find out I was the only white kid in the entire school. People were like, dude, are you lost? You know, like, what the hell are you doing here? Before they were rappers, I went to high school with two of the members of Dayton family. So the record came a few years after high school, but they were rapping even then. And that was one of the songs. It was one of the earliest songs they wrote, was about living in Flint and the drug dealing and the crime and, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, Flint Town, Flint Town. There was sort of a theme song for Flint people. I don't have to call it a theme song. It's sort of a rallying cry for people that were from Flint, especially those on the north side. So, and they're amazing rappers. Like if you like Master P or if you like Ice Cube, Dayton family is sort of, if you took Tupac, Ice Cube, and Master P and put them all in a blender, that's kind of what Dayton family sounds like.
Yeah.
So really great artists.
Well, and then right after that, you've got Ice-T, I'm Your Pusher.
Yeah. So after I graduated high school, I attended Saginaw Valley State University. And I got there, got in the dorm, had the room all set up. For the first 2 days, I didn't have a roommate. And on the third day, I hear this on the door. So I open the door, and there's this black kid standing there. And he said, "Are you Kristofer?" And I was like, "Yep." And he goes, "I'm your roommate." I was like, "All right, come on in." He walked in. He had one of the boom boxes, old school boom boxes on his shoulder. It was, you know, big as a truck. And he set it on the thing, and he's like, "My name is Carl, but everyone calls me TV." Okay. Why do they call you TV? Because I'm an expert at fixing electronics. Oh, okay. That's what he did, is he was going through the program for IBM to learn how to fix computers and copy machines, that kind of stuff. But that was his forte. He was an expert with electronics. He fixed any TV, radio, whatever. So he's like, "You like hip hop?" And I didn't know a whole lot about hip hop. I had sort of a very limited knowledge. It's okay. I don't know a ton about it. He goes, "We won't educate you." I said, okay. So the very first thing he put in was Ice-T. And immediately was just like, yo, that was hype, man. Like Ice-T back in the day he's still a badass, but you know, Ice-T back in the day, he was one of the OGs, man. And
he's a different type of badass now. He's,
yeah,
you know, living off that SVU, you know.
And that was the funniest thing in a way, watching him, being a fan of his as the rapper, the gangster rapper, and then starting Body Count and doing the Cop Killer song, and then show up on SVU as a cop.
Yeah,
it was like
the irony.
Yo, like that. Yeah, like that was the ultimate case of flipping the script. You know, like it was like the most brilliant lateral move. You know, I mean, it was almost Barry Sanders like, man. It was just like, it was like, now I'm here, now I'm there.
Yeah.
And, there was so many songs about Ice-T that I loved, but that one kind of hits home with me because he's talking about instead of pushing drugs, he's pushing music. That's kind of what I do. Like all my shows are about music. Most of my podcasts are about music, and that's kind of what I do. Is I push music. I introduce you to all of these great artists that most people have never heard of or forgotten about.
Well, and that's something that I appreciate about talking to people about music, because I'm trying my best to say, or to not say, I don't like a particular artist. Yeah. And what I'm trying to do instead is just being like, I just haven't found my entry point. Because there's something about every artist that you could find appeal with. You just got to find the right one to hook you in. That's it.
Well, you know, here's the thing, sort of on a different avenue of that. It is okay not to like an artist, but you don't have to be an asshole about it and say, I hate that artist, or I think they're a piece of crap, or whatever.
CJ, it's so much easier to be an asshole about it.
I mean,
it sucks that it's like that, because it sucks that it takes more effort to be human and just to be a good person to other people, as opposed to just being an asshole about stuff.
Like I will be the first person to say I am not a fan of the Rolling Stones. Nothing about the Rolling Stones makes me want to listen to them.
Mhm.
But on that same note, this band has been together for 70 years. They have done 100 plus records. They are still selling out arenas. So
Mhm.
you know what? It may not be my thing, but it's obviously somebody else's. Not a huge fan of Taylor Swift. That's okay. I don't like Taylor Swift. I'll listen to Pink. There's always a sort of a different avenue that you can
Yeah.
take in the same thing. It's okay to not like an artist, but you
Mhm.
don't have to beg on that artist. You don't have to
Yeah.
try to bring them down or destroy their of what they are. Just say, hey, it's not for me, and I would rather listen to this. And that is your opportunity to say, you know what? I'm not a fan of Metallica. But if you like Metallica, I have this really awesome band called Four Eyes that is similar to Metallica that I think is
Maybe.
really amazing, and you should check them out.
Yeah.
So, you can, again, sort of use it as a teaching moment.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. That's something that we're trying to instill in my oldest daughter, because as she's starting to like listen to music, she's finally starting to form her opinions
right.
about music. And the only thing that we've been kind of trying to encourage her to remember is that just because you don't like this now doesn't mean that you won't like it
Yeah.
in the future. And
Oh,
there's nothing wrong with that. And more importantly, also, just because you didn't like this song, maybe you need to give either another song another chance, or just don't be a jerk about it.
Blue October,
Mm.
favorite band, probably my second favorite band right now. When I first heard them, absolutely hated them. It's cringeworthy. Was like, God, that's the most awful thing I've ever heard. The Cure is another band. When I first heard The Cure, I was like, God, that's freaking awful. My buddy'd be like, well, you got to be in a right frame of mind for it. And I was like, dude, there is no good frame of mind you can be in to like The Cure. Okay. It's terrible. And I was working at Cedar Point, laying on the bed one night. All the lights are off, got the little electric globe light running. And Bryce comes in and he throws in Disintegration by The Cure. I'm just laying on the bed like this, and it starts playing, and I'm like, "Oh, that's kind of cool." Whoa, and it was like he was 100% right. You just had to be in that vibe for it. And now, massive fan of The Cure,
Mhm.
massive fan. Same with Blue October. When I first heard him, hated him. Now I live and breathe by what Justin does as a singer, the words he writes, his life going from just completely off the rails as a drug addict and mental illness and that to getting his life right and getting his family back. So yeah.
Yeah, got it. Okay, next one we have Cyclone Temple. Why? This is another one that's like I have no idea who this is.
So Cyclone Temple were a thrash band from Chicago. It's my buddy's band, Greg G. G still lives in Chicago. He's a doorman at a very, very fancy high rise. And he has a band now called Diesel Jenkins and the Funksters of Love. And they do mashups. They take old R&B songs and they mix them with modern hip hop and sort of have this. They like one of the songs they took California Love and mixed it with This Is How You Do It by
Oh,
Montel.
oh,
So it's got this, you know, this is how you do it, California love. And it's like G is a brilliant. But anyways, 1991, Cyclone Temple's record come out, what's called I Hate Therefore I Am. And I was in a record store looking for records and I saw the cover of this record and just immediately was like, yo, that's going to be a killer record. It had this big like church on it with like all these like ghosts escaping from the steeple and the songs on it. And I took it home and right out of the gate, it was just very Metallica-ish. It was in that same vein as like Metallica and Testament and Exodus. And so I'm looking at it and I discover that G is the guitar player.
hmm,
He's this big 6'5", 260-pound black dude. Now in 1991, there were not a lot of black guys playing metal guitar in thrash bands. So I was like, well, that's fucking awesome. Like I love the fact that this kid who grew up in the Cabrini housing project went on to be a thrash metal guitar player. I mean, you take all the people that grew up in Cabrini Green, I'll guarantee you, G's probably one of the only ones who got into thrash metal.
I feel like that's a safe assumption.
Yeah. So it was a song that I've had so many battles in life over me listening to metal? Why do you like metal? What is it about metal that blah, blah, blah? And the song is about this kid going wild. But in the middle section, there's a spoken passage. He's like, Dear Mom and Dad, I write this letter telling you I'm now free. It was your lack of love and attention. That is what killed me. So don't blame some heavy metal record to cover your own neglect. Your perfect picture turned fatal portrait is what I've come to expect. And that passage just like, so it's like, whoa. I
Mm.
knew so many kids who committed suicide or went off the rails due to arguing with their parents or arguing with their family over them being metalheads, being thrown away or put in foster care or all these various horrible things because people didn't understand. People, they had religious parents that didn't understand their love of metal.
Right.
So that passage in that song was so, and even today, I hear that and I get goosebumps. Like it's just was so powerful. Like, dear Mom and Dad, I write this letter telling you I'm now free. And it was just like, wow. So it's one of those songs. It's a massive, big stomping song, with the
Hmm.
drums. And again, if you like Metallica, Testament, Exodus, Overkill, that kind of stuff, then you'll love the Cyclone Temple. To me, it's the most underrated thrash record of all time. It should have been a massive, massive record, but the label screwed it up, and it just is what it is. So,
That's
uh,
and that's how they wrote it, right? So
and G's still on Facebook. He's one of the funniest guys you'll ever speak to. Like I keep telling him, you need to write a book, dude, because you are freaking hilarious. Like far funnier than Cedric the Entertainer. Or he creates all these really funny characters, and he acts them out in the videos, like Reverend Itchy Pickle and Walmart Jenkins, and they're like these caricatures of people,
yeah.
but they're funny. Like the Montavious Walmart one is he's always like he's dating this woman named LaQuisha, and he's like, LaQuisha, open the door. I know you in there. Come on. I done gave you my income tax. You and them little wolf pack of kids drinking up all the damn juicy juice and eating all the snackables. And it's just it's this sort of what's his name, Cedric the Entertainer type of character that, or Bernie Mac type of character that he does. And he's so funny, and I'm like, dude, you seriously need to write a book or turn that into a comedy skit or something, because
Because it would
it's
hit. It certainly sounds like
he's so funny. But he works as a doorman at a very expensive high rise downtown. So if you're ever downtown and you pass a high rise and you see this 6'5", 400-pound black dude who kind of looks like a pimp, that's G.
that's him.
That's G.
Noted. Okay. All right. Next song we got Jelly Roll. The
Jelly
Hate
Roll.
Goes On.
So long before Jelly became successful, I know a lot of people are on the Jelly Roll bandwagon now because he's the biggest thing in country music. Jelly has been a hip hop artist for 20 plus years, dozens and dozens of records. This was his very first record. It was called The Hate Goes On. And it's just Jelly being Jelly, talking trash, being goofy. The Jelly you see in videos, that's him. There's no
Mhm.
facade to him. In 2005, I was living in Little Rock. We promoted a show. It was Haystack, Jelly Roll, David Ray, and Big Smoke. And when I met Jelly, I knew like this kid is he's going to be a massive star. Now, I didn't think it was going to be in country. I thought it was going to be in hip hop. But his personality, it was so big. It was so gregarious. It was so real. Like there was nothing fake about this dude. And I'm like, you don't see personalities like that. So I knew that Jelly was going to be. It was never a question of if he's going to be a star. It was only a question of when he comes in contact with the right person. Now, obviously, it's in country, and he recorded "Save Me" and blew up, and now he gets $1 million to show, and is
Mhm.
living the life. But I can go back and I can show anyone the pictures from 2005 of Jelly when he was before he had any facial tattoos, before he had anything like that. He had just gotten out of the federal prison, federal lockup, and he was trying to do his thing. And again, one of the nicest guys you'll ever meet. He
Mhm.
really, really has a heart of gold. So,
It
um,
certainly seems like that when, in interviews and different things like that. And it's interesting seeing this. Look, I'm sure it's not new when people cross genres, but you're just seeing a lot more people go towards country music, like in more prominent or not prominent. That's not the word I'm trying to say, but bigger is the same thing as prominent, I guess. So I guess I'm
yeah,
trying to say that. But between Post Malone and Beyonce, and I'm sure there's like dozens of other people out there who's trying something within the country music space. It's interesting.
Right. So yeah, but that's why I chose Shelly. And,
Yeah.
and the other part of it too is it's again, I get a lot of hate for liking artists like Man of War and Air Supply and that, and it's okay. The hate goes on, whatever. Just,
Right.
let it go.
Right.
Sort of, circling back to Bring It On, like whatever. Bring on your whatever you got for me. I'll take it and spit it back at you. I mean, you ain't gonna knock me down. So
Yeah. All right, we got Mr. Chief, City Boy.
So Mr. Chief, he's a Detroit rapper, and it is a hill I will die on that he should have been the artist that blew up in Detroit instead of Eminem. He is so great, man. But this is a song that it uses the Journey song.
But the
Don't Stop
I
Believing.
believe in,
He
yeah.
uses a sample of it, and he's basically talking about being from Detroit. He's talking about being from Hockey Town 313, and it sums up a lot of me going from the country to the city, Flint, and all of that, and sort of becoming that person of having to hustle and having to grind to overcome the obstacles people were throwing at me. Like, you go to the club with your friends, and they'd be like, "All right, who brought the white boy?" You'd be in a club, you'd be the only white person in there. Who brought the white boy? So yeah, City Boy's and it's got a massive bass track to it. It's one of
Okay.
those. It's one of those bangers, man, that just when you listen to it, it's got that, Don't Stop Believing sample, but it's also got these big 808s in it. And, it just thumps, man. It's that sort of old school Miami bass type of sound.
Got it.
It's a
Nice.
fun song.
And it's so interesting because when you have two artists who kind of going on the same paths, and then one makes it and one's still doing some good stuff but maybe didn't make it to the same levels that the other did.
Like
um
you said, right place, right time.
yeah.
I'm just happened to run across Dre when he did, and he got that golden ticket. But there were a lot of artists: Chief, Aztec the Barfly, Bang Belushi. I mean, there are rappers in Detroit. Everyone to talk about Eminem. Eminem's the greatest rapper of all time. Eminem's not even the greatest rapper in Detroit.
Right.
Like, he's really not. Like, I could easily give you a list of 10 rappers from Detroit that are as good or better that would eat him alive in a real battle. Everybody, 8 Mile, 8 Mile. Emma's good, but I'll guarantee you, if he went up against Aztec, if he went up against Chief, if he went up against Bang Belushi, they would eat him alive.
Yeah.
Like, so.
Nice.
And again, no disrespect to M, just is
Just,
what it is.
yeah, it is what it is. Got 6 a.m. with Skin.
So that's a really sad song. That's a song Nikki Sixx wrote. It's a piano ballad. And I had a daughter that was born in 2010. She was born with trisomy 13, which is a disease. Children are born, can't survive it. It's 96% of the children die within the first week. The ones that do survive it rarely survive past the first year. The ones that survive past the first year normally only live for about 7, horribly disformed, never speak. They're the ones you see in a wheelchair that are just like twisted like a tree. And I hate saying that, but they're the kids you see that are just like,
Mm.
and I know that's offensive, and I don't mean to be offensive, but it's really the greatest representation of what these children look like. It's a horrible, horrid disease, and I would never wish upon my worst enemy. She died after 4 days. Cleft lip, 6 fingers, 6 toes, hole in the top of her roof of her mouth. These are all common things you see with trisomy 13. So it's a song that you are not your skin. Like, let them see the real you, the angel that resides inside. So it's a song basically it's an anti-bullying song, but it's also a song of just hope of, if you have scars, if you have demons, that's not who you are. Your outer reflection is only a minor part of who you are on the inside. So, even if you're missing an arm, if you're missing a leg, if you're got scars on your face, whatever, that's just your skin. That's not who you are personality wise. And it's
Right.
such a great example of that very thing. Don't judge a book by its cover.
Yeah.
Because I've seen people that are disabled, handicapped, born with Down syndrome, autism, and they are some of the most wonderful people I will ever have the pleasure of being in the presence of. So
Yeah.
that's song.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's one that I'll definitely like. I'm looking forward to checking all of
It's a
these
tough
out.
song
But
for me to listen to. Like,
oh yeah,
I
yeah.
break down crying at the end of that song because it's just
We all have we
oh,
yeah.
And people will say, oh, it gets better with time. It doesn't. When you lose a
Oh no.
child, it never gets better. Anyone that tells you that is full of shit.
Well, is
It,
is full is full of shit and just doesn't understand like at
yeah, like
all. Like,
it's been 14 years. It hurts as much today as it did the day I found out.
yeah,
So yeah,
appreciate you sharing that with me.
I
So
mean,
I
it's
know.
it's life, dude. I mean, it's horrible, but it's life. People live, people die, and sometimes you get a chance to prepare for it. Sometimes you don't. It
Mhm.
doesn't make it any less painful. If your parent gets Alzheimer's, they're going to pass, so you can prepare yourself for the eventual end. Now, it doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't
Mhm.
make it any less shitty that you have to watch your parent go through this process. But, at least you can sort of build up a little bit of ready to face
Yeah,
it.
to
Um,
process
yeah.
that grief
Uh,
in a semi-timely manner.
yeah.
It's when you get kicked in the dick all of a sudden and
Yeah.
it's like, oh
As a
shit.
parent, there is nothing you can do to prepare for the death of a child.
Yeah.
Okay, as a parent, I'm telling you right now, my oldest one or my youngest one, he's 13. Something were to happen to him, you'd see me on the news, multinational killing spree, because
Hmm.
it would literally drive me just
Yeah.
out to that edge. But
Yeah.
you know what it is.
I got two
More than
girls.
I could do about it.
Yeah.
You enjoy the little bit of time you have. We spent every single moment holding her and speaking to her and letting her know that we're here. And I'm sure she didn't understand, or she probably
Hmm.
had no
Yeah.
comprehension of it. But it just,
But you were there
yeah,
and
I, I
that,
got I got those memories,
yeah.
and that's what's important. So
Yeah. Got Tom McDonald
yeah, so
Scars.
sort of the
Sorry.
same thing. Tom is telling the story of, I probably shouldn't be here. I've survived some horrific shit in life. And that's me. 16 years truck driving, a half-inch chain hit me in the forehead, tried to kill me. I took 90 stitches, 86 stitches to close the wound, traumatic brain injury. This is one of many things that I should have never walked away from. So much like my tattoos, my scars they're stories,
Hmm.
they're a life lived on the edge, and I've had 3 or 4 times that I shouldn't have walked away from what I walked away from,
Yeah.
but I did. I have a really amazing guardian angel. Thank God for them.
Hmm.
Obviously my time isn't up. God hasn't gotten what he wanted out of me yet. So that's what Scars is. It's just Tom's. And it's very different than 99% of what Tom does. There's no politics in this song. Tom is, again, very polarizing. A lot of people hate Tom because he's kind of pro-Trump and whatnot and whatnot. And this was one of those songs that didn't have a political edge to it. It was just his story of being an alcoholic, being a drug addict, living in his friend's basement, sleeping on a couch, and
Hmm.
coming out of that. And the scars are scars of the story, scars of
Yeah.
the story of a life well lived or hard lived.
Hmm.
And it's just a great song. So
Got it. Okay.
yeah.
Final song on the list. So we got Youngblood, I Love You, Will You Marry
Will you
Me?
marry me? So before my divorce, I had a stepdaughter. She came to me one day and she's like, "Hey, check out this artist named Youngblood." And I saw a picture of Youngblood, and everything about this kid just was like, God, I'm gonna hate this fucking kid. Spiky hair, the lip ring, the lipstick, just everything about it. The sort of androgynous punk rock look. Old school leather jacket, but he was wearing a skirt, and it was just like it was like David Bowie and Joe Strummer had a son. And it's like, God, I'm gonna fucking hate this kid. And that was the first song I heard. And I was like, fuck, this is a great song. Listen to the rest of his record. And it was like, fuck, this kid is really good. So he came in concert and we bought tickets, me and the ex-wife, and I took Belle to her very first concert. It was Youngblood. And the kid is just 2.5 hours. This kid never stopped moving. Hand over hand across the lighting rig, Paul going across the stage, stood in the middle of the venue with everyone in the crowd surrounding him with an acoustic guitar and performed his song called California. I mean, it was going back to the old school show of really knowing the art of performing.
Yeah.
And as much as I didn't want to love the kid, I'm a huge fan of him now. And my 13-year-old is a huge fan of him.
Mhm.
He's just some people are built to be rock stars, and this kid, he is built to be a rock star, man. Like he's everything about him just screams rock star. So that's why I chose
That one
like
to cap it off. So good.
yeah, it was just again one of those artists I didn't want to like, but now
Just
I'm absolutely a massive fan of his, and he's got so many amazing songs. But that was the first one that I heard that, it's got that sort of chunky punk Green Day style guitar, I love you, will you marry me? And it's just, it's sort of got a little bit of a reggae edge to it, and it's got a punk edge to it, and it's got like a pop edge to it. So it's really three or four genres he sort of all put together. If you've ever listened to The Clash,
mm,
very much in the style of The Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go? Or Rockin' the Casbah, it's very much in that style.
got it.
Um, so, that's the simplest way to sum up Youngblood.
Awesome. Nice. So that's your list. Final question I have for you before I let you off the hook. If this playlist was an actual album, what would be the album cover?
Probably probably a burning book because every one of these songs tells a story, and most of them are stories of tragedy. So I've always joked if and when I do a record, and I am in the process of recording a record, the title is going to be The Menial Mumblings of a Musical Madman. Because it's really sort of the best way to, is just, none of these songs are super important, but they're, musically, they're chaos. You got Air Supply and Manowar and Ice-T and Jelly Roll and Youngblood and Blackfoot and Jerry Reed. So
Mhm.
you get all of these different genres, and I could go 10 times deeper than this, but I tried to keep it to the point that people would know at least some of the songs. I didn't want to be totally obscure to where I had to spend an hour explaining everyone.
No, I got you there, but yeah, the great book title. This is a great list. So CJ, thanks so much for coming on and indulging me with with this particular list and just explaining everything. So I'm looking forward to listening to all these songs and just reconnecting sometime soon and just
Yeah.
telling you what how much I enjoyed all these different songs. So and would love to have you back. You got the movie soundtrack one that you said you'd want to do next. So let's fire
Oh,
that up and let's pick that and let's record soon enough for
yeah.
that.
I'd really love to do the SPDM one, but for
Hmm.
the TV shows, because as I pointed out in the first email, I got a couple TV series that I would really love to dig into and
Well,
what
which ones? Just
Justified would be like the number one, but also like Landman with Billy Bob Thornton. There's SVU, Law and Order SVU is a favorite. There's a few of them. Justified is the main one though, because Justified is like that's my favorite series of all times, and it's got Walton Goggins in it, and how can you not love Walton Goggins?
that is absolutely true. And
Yeah,
okay, well we'll have to plan that one too because I
yeah.
really enjoyed getting a chance to talk to you, get to know you a little bit, and yeah, greatly enjoyed the time. And where can the people find you? And if they want
Um,
to keep up the conversation with music or just anything else, and
Yeah, anything
they,
pop culture, book related. As you see, I collect books and movies. So anything music, pop culture, especially if it relates to old cheesy 70s and 80s movies. A massive fan of the Toxic Avenger, movies like Van Nuys Boulevard, Porky, Screwballs. I love all the old sex romp ones, but also movies like Caligula, movies like Iron Eagle.
Mhm.
Iron Eagle is probably one of my favorite movies of all time. I know it's terribly cheesy, but I've watched that movie probably over 1,000 times, and I never ever get bored of seeing
Mhm.
Iron Eagle. And
Nice.
again, another hill I would die on. Iron Eagle is a far better movie than Top Gun. So
Quite a
it's like I know
d-
people are going to be like, "Are you out of your mind?" But
hey.
yes, it is. Like
Mhm.
scroll for scroll, Iron Eagle is just a great movie. The F-16 is a better plane than the Tomcat, and the better soundtrack. And Lou Gossett Jr. That's all you need to say. Lou Gossett Jr. Okay,
That's
like
that's fair. That is a very compelling argument to
yeah.
go with that.
So, but yeah, anything like that. Like I love old great. I love movies that were so bad they were good.
Mm.
Toxic Avenger being one of them, just because nothing about the Toxic Avenger is good, but it's also one of the movies that it's so bad you can't look away from it.
Yeah.
And I'm dying to see what they did with the new interpretation of it with Peter Dinklage and Elijah.
Elijah Wood that was
Yeah,
in it.
Elijah Wood
Mhm.
and a couple other people. I'm dying. I know they've been dragging their feet on it because this and that. They said it was so gory, it was so over the top that they couldn't give it a rating. So, but now they're finally getting around 5 years after it was finished. They're going to finally release it to theaters, and it'll probably do horrible in theaters, but it'll probably make tens and tens of millions of dollars
Oh,
off the other market. So,
got it.
yeah. But to find me, just look up Music God CJ Plain. I am everywhere. I'm on TikTok. I'm on YouTube. I'm on Facebook. I'm not on Instagram because I had some crypto asshole that jacked my account, and I'm fighting with Instagram to get that one back.
Yeah, that
Um,
sounds. Yeah, that sounds about
but
right.
on YouTube, you can find me as Music God Reacts, basically just like that sign, basically like what that sign says, Music God Reacts.
Got
You
it.
can also find the Noise Report with a Z, Noize, a report. That's my podcast. That's on the same channel as Music God Reacts. You can find me on YouTube under both of those. And that's where you can watch all my crazy reactions to people like Dimash and Elite and the Teskey brothers and Cyclone Temple and Bob
Hmm.
Seger, Jerry Reed, and different things. So,
Nice.
started as a joke, but took on a life of its own. So I'm running with it now.
Nice, nice. And that's the best way to do to, if you're having fun and you're enjoying it, just
Yeah,
keep going and keep trucking along with it. That's how I
absolutely.
have, 4 or 5 different podcasts now, and I'm enjoying it. I'm having a
Yeah,
lot of fun, and
I'm going to school. I'm getting my bachelor's degree, so I'm just doing one right now. But I'm sure once I finish this bachelor's degree and get the better equipment and everything, I'll probably have 3 or 4 YouTube channels or 2 or 3 podcasts because I love doing it. I love doing this. I don't make any
nice.
money from it. It's an expensive hobby, but you
It's
know what? Hey, I could be out there selling drugs or I could be doing this. So, so
that is completely fair. I told this I said something similar to my wife. Like I could be a compulsive gambler,
right.
or I could be doing this. So
I could
I'd
be an
rather
alcoholic. I could
I,
be out whoring around at strip clubs, like I'm
this.
here doing this. So you always know where I'm at and you
Mhm,
don't have to chase me down. So,
perfect. So look
mhm.
up all of CJ's stuff, subscribe to it, and looking forward to having you back down the road coming up soon.
Yeah, brother. I truly appreciate you having me on here. Thank you for allowing me to be random and eclectic and long-winded and
Yeah, absolutely. This is the first time that I've had this kind of format, and I think it worked out really well. So I'm gonna put this in the toolbox and continue to utilize this moving forward. So appreciate you being the unintentional guinea pig for this, but I think it worked out really well. So thank you.
absolutely, brother. You guys be safe, be well, treat each other with kindness. Remember the music heals.
Well, my friends, the time has come to end this episode of Mix CD. Be sure to like, rate, and subscribe to anything and everything SPDM Crew wherever you get your podcast. Join us on social media on Facebook, Instagram, X, Threads, YouTube, and Blue Sky at SPDM Crew. Check out our website soon to be out at spdmcrew.com. You can follow our playlist on Spotify and Apple Music at Mike Hilty. Shout out to HiFlyer Creative Studios for making our awesome logo. Greatly appreciate their support. And if you have any marketing, logo, or brand standard needs, contact them at highflyercreative.com. If you've got a podcast idea or you're interested in being part of the SPDM crew as a guest or collaborating, email us at spdmcrew@gmail.com. Until next time, no matter what happens now, you shouldn't be afraid because I know today has been the most perfect day I've ever seen.